Hey everybody, and welcome to a new video. Have you been thinking of printing your work and don't know where to start? In this video, I'm going to walk you through the considerations to print your photos, settings, monitors, and show you the mistakes many people make, myself included. If you stay till the end, I'll show you the surprise in this big box, which was a dream of mine for years. My name is Simon d'Entremont, and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more.
Try to open up your mind sometimes. You'll be just fine.
So there are two things that happened to coincide that led to this video. First is that I've been looking to reorient my print sales away from regular paper prints to fine art limited edition prints. As such, I've actually discontinued selling prints in the last year while I build a collection of the best of my best to use in such a collection, where I'll only sell a limited number and they'll be on the best media available. It's not that they didn't sell well, they sold so well that I was too busy getting into the details of printing prints one at a time and too fussy to outsource the whole piece of work. I posted this photo of the recent eclipse and got at least 30 requests for prints, but I said no. Rather than getting busy making tons of prints, I'll be making the move from quantity to quality, and I've especially really fallen in love with acrylic prints. But to be honest, the quality I'd been getting was hit or miss. Secondly, I have a cottage renovation on the go where I plan to permanently move. For years, I've been visualizing a large, super wide acrylic print on the wall lit by an accent light. And I always thought a big Milky Way panorama would fit the bill. And so my cottage reno is almost done, and I've been looking for a high quality printer to make a monster acrylic print. At the same time, I thought it would be a test bed for my fine art limited prints collection. While this is happening, Whitewall reached out to me to talk about partnering. I did some research and found that the reviews of Whitewall's work were great. So I thought, what a great opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. Whitewall has been around since 2007 and has won numerous Best Photo Lab in the World awards. They're based in Germany and even have stores in places like New York, Paris, Hong Kong, and London. So they're really a global company. I really encourage you to print your photos if you never have. There's something just special about seeing your work in print and especially printed large. It's really a reward for all the work that went into the photo. So let's look at the process to get a print, and let's start way back at the beginning with your camera. While I'm actually an advocate for shooting in JPEG if that's what fits your life better, shooting RAW for eventual prints is a good practice. You can adjust the white balance later without penalty, and you'll have more color depth and dynamic range to work with for better looking lights and darks. Now you may be thinking, well, my camera's only 20 megapixels. I can't print very large. You may be surprised that this isn't the case. 20 megapixels is enough for a decently large print, keeping in mind the viewing distance. Unless you're pixel peeping up close, usually the larger the print, the farther back you stand to take it all in, and the less resolution you need, the farther back you stand. Remember that a billboard is often 2 to 5 megapixels and no one complains. Now the other equipment consideration is your monitor. Mistake number one, by far, is that people set their monitors too bright while image processing. Guilty. The first time I printed a Milky Way shot, it came out black. The problem is the brightness of a print lit by reflected light in the room will look much darker than backlit on your monitor. As such, what you think is bright on your monitor is actually quite a bit darker when printed. Make your monitor brightness 80 or 85% of fully wide open at the most. Secondly, if you plan to make processing and printing a regular part of your photo routine, consider getting a monitor calibration device, like this DataRite Spider. You place this over your monitor and run a calibration routine that adjusts colors, temperatures, and contrast for your monitor. If you don't own one, both Windows and Macs have a calibration routine you can run that at least give you a good starting point. Also consider where you edit. Don't do it in a dark room or overly bright space with a light overhead. This will really fool you about your monitor's brightness and saturation of your colors. A neutrally lit space is best, not too bright, not too dark. Now let's prepare our photo for print. I'm going to use Lightroom Classic here. It works in a color space called ProPhoto RGB, which displays a high number of colors, which is best. But after processing, it displays in what's called Adobe RGB. A few less colors, but still very, very good and more likely in line with what your monitor can display. Adobe RGB is still an improvement over sRGB. You can also use what are called ICC profiles to better match papers and printers and get exact simulations of what prints will look like, but not absolutely needed unless you're getting into pro work. Now what about the photos? Let's look at my Milky Way shot. It was shot as a panorama at ISO 3200 using a Canon R5 and Sigma 20mm f1.4 lens at f1.6. For processing, a few tips for getting good results in print. Open those shadows up a bit, as darks, unless really well lit, may look extra dark and featureless. Don't over sharpen your photos. It can make them look what I call crunchy in print. And finally, remember what I mentioned about prints coming out dark? I still often brighten them a bit more before print, about half a stop more, as the risk of too dark is still more than too bright. Just don't blow out your highlights. If raising the overall exposure risks blowing out your whites, raise the shadows instead, or raise the overall exposure and lower the whites a bit. Remember that pressing Alt or Option on a Mac while sliding the whites slider will reveal any clipping. As for export settings, Adobe RGB is a good color space, better than sRGB, but still widely accepted and applicable to printers and papers. You don't want the file compressed, so don't resize. Leave it at the highest resolution and 100 on the quality scale. And set format to JPEG or TIFF. High quality, uncompressed JPEG is just as good as TIFF in my experience. Now, if you plan to reopen and rework the photo more, use TIFF, as JPEG can impact quality when reopening and reprocessing the file over and over. But if this is the final version for print, JPEG is fine. I don't think you can tell the difference, and the file is way smaller. People overly fuss about the resolution setting. Use a high one like 240 just in case, but many pro labs will resize your photo to the size you choose to print and have software that will get the details right regardless of what you set as a resolution, as long as you don't resize to fit to a certain size. And now we've got output sharpening, either standard or select the paper type. Both will work okay. Now media matters. Different papers will give you a different look. Bright saturated colors look good on glossy paper, and more subdued can look good on semi-gloss. Be careful with gloss under glass in a room with lots of windows. The reflections are an issue. Getting test prints in different papers is a great way to experiment. You can also print on metal, which can look great. But personally, I've fallen in love with the vibrant look of acrylic. Acrylic prints are prints face mounted to an acrylic plate. I just find the vibrancy of the colors just pops, and it's amazing. I've had some made before, and this one came out okay, for example, but then I got this one printed and it came out dull and lifeless. I need to find a supplier that I know will deliver every time consistently. So I'm on the Whitewall site, and while you can get photo prints, canvas, metal, or frame prints, I came here for acrylic. There are various metallic and Ultra HD versions, even matte glass for areas with lots of stray light. But before experimenting, I wanted to try what the standard offering was to see what that was like. So here's the photo I want printed, a wide panorama of the Milky Way over a barn not far from my cottage. You select your photo and go to the next step. You can pick a standard size or aspect ratio, or make your own. I want this one to be really large, as I have 12-foot ceilings in my main room, and this will be the centerpiece of that whole wall. So 175 by 70 centimeters, that's almost 6 feet across. Note that the site gives you options of dimensions of the actual aspect ratio of your photo, so no calculations needed. The next parameter is image optimization. I personally process my photos, so I didn't think I needed any help, but I'm totally convinced I was wrong. By adjusting the slider, it adds nice contrast, raises the shadow detail that's often too dark, and made the image pop, which is just what I needed. 70% was great for me, but you'll need to do this on your own and experiment. Then there's the frame. There are tons of options here like wood and aluminum. But you know what? One of my favorite aspects of the acrylic print is the borderless edge with clear acrylic, allowing you to almost see into your print. I'm going with the 6mm acrylic glass, as I like that thick look. And even though my room has lots of windows, I choose glossy, as I want this to shine, particularly at night. For paper, I chose Fuji Crystal Glossy. And I want bright colors and high contrast. I want this to pop. I put aluminum rails on it for hanging, no white border, sharp corners, and ordered it as a one-piece panel. A few weeks later, this shows up by delivery truck from Germany. Wow, is this thing well packed. And here I'm opening it up from its packaging. You're seeing the actual unpacking and my real-time reaction. Wow, 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 I was so stoked. This thing is a beauty. I got some friends to help me mount it on the wall, and here it is. My acrylic print from Whitewall is mounted proudly at my cottage and the centerpiece in my living room. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I think I've found my supplier for my acrylics for my limited edition prints. I'd like to also add some paper print options as well, so I think my next Whitewall order will be getting some papers to try out, like the Fuji Crystal and Metallic Ultra HD. I need to pick a black and white option too. If you're looking for a serious, high-quality print shop that can offer you a great product and ship all over the world, give Whitewall a look. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. I really encourage you to print your work. There's something about holding your work in your hands and seeing it in physical form rather than digital that is so rewarding as a photographer. I hope you can do this soon so you can see your own work come to life. I know you can do it.